Welcome to the Regenaissance Podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Griggs. Visit www.theregenaissance.co to learn more. Hello, everyone. My name is Ryan Griggs, and I'm the host of the Regenaissance Podcast. Alongside to me is TJ from ACTS Decentralized. Thank you for joining.
Hey there, how are you? Thank you so much for having me, man.
So this one is really unique from the podcast that I've done so far because I've primarily talked to folks that have had their own ranches and farms and, third, fourth, fifth generation. And then I saw your account on Instagram and I loved it immediately because
Thank you.
um, there's a lot, I guess, why I like it because we're the most disconnected we've ever been from our food. I mean, I had this realization a couple years ago and it inevitably led me to Regenaissance. Um, And I've just been trying to find ways to help educate and raise awareness behind what's happened to our food system and really bring the people that are consuming the food with the people that have produced the food, because that gap is the widest it's ever been. And it continues to be
hmm
that way. But on the flip side, I've definitely noticed a shift of people really waking up to what's happened to our food system. Similar thinking of what I had too of, oh man, I've been so disconnected from my food. I've only been going to grocery stores. And then this huge rise in homesteading too. And then I don't even know how I discovered your account, but I just remember seeing you share about the plots of land that you have and just what you're trying to do. So I guess to get started, if you could just share what you're doing and I guess what was the impetus behind starting it?
Yeah, so the name of my project is ACTS Decentralized Real Estate. The main problem that we solve is we bridge the gap between living in suburban hell and having a piece of land with a operational regenerative farm on it and off-grid utilities for you and your family to have your own family compound where you, maybe your parents, and maybe your children and your children's children can all live together on that piece of land, turning it from what would otherwise just be land out into the country to an heirloom that you can pass on for generations. There's many influences behind acts, many influences. And as you mentioned, the majority of people in farming, they're second, third, fourth, fifth generation farmers. I'm not whatsoever. I am my own customer in the sense that I am faced with the fact that my father was a fantastic father, but he didn't teach me any skills in farming. He didn't teach me any skills in raising my own food. I mean, he's again an incredible man, and he worked as hard as he possibly could to give me the best opportunities, but that was just not one of those things that he could provide. He was a doctor, not a farmer. So I grew up in Miami, Florida, and spent my whole life in urban environments, going from Miami to Baltimore to Los Angeles to Greenville, South Carolina, and then moving out to Houston. Never actually having my own farm, but always wanting the dream to have my own food, always having the dream to have my own Wagyu, my own raw milk, my own eggs, all of these different things. So, Axe was created as an answer to the question, what would it take to take a guy like me or to take families similar to my own family and have them move to a fully off-grid parcel of land, set up a farm, grow food on it, sell that food, and be able to enjoy a family compound? So that's what we do. We provide a solution that answers that question in its entirety in a way that nobody else does. Step one, we have a very unique system to go out and acquire the best land in the world, subdivide it, and sell it as 10-acre parcels for families that would like this type of lifestyle. Step two, once those families buy land from us, we help them set up their own ranch franchises. We call them ranchises that come with an average of 5 cows, 600 chickens, and their choice of pigs, sheep, or goats, a ranch hand infrastructure, including fencing and barns and electric wire, as well as done for you meat processing, egg collection, milk collection, packaging, marketing, sales, and shipping, so that these families not only have a farm that's running for them in the background of their lives without their actual input, even if they're away, even if they live in another state and they just see this property as like their secondary property, even if they have no idea about farming, even if, all of these even ifs, okay? So that they can actually enjoy it, and we also connect them with build partners to make it very easy to actually build a off-grid condominium, barndominium, or build an off-grid home for yourself and your children and your children's children.
Man, that's super interesting because I remember looking at one of the parcels to where you have um you it was one of the videos to where the right was like parcel number 40 and to the left was parcel number one, and I'm assuming this is just a giant compound and then you split them up into 10 acre parcels, correct?
Yes. So our first property, Little G Ranch, was a 492 acre ranch that we acquired. It was the most expensive ranch in the entirety of that county, of Houston County. And we subdivided it into 40 10-acre parcels at an incredibly affordable price. See, the trick behind what we do is that there are properties available, ranches across the country, that their per acre cost is very, very low. But because there's so many acres, it's incredibly expensive and almost nobody can actually afford it. So these are properties that are 5, 10, $15 million. How many people can actually afford something that's 5, 10, $15 million, right? Almost nobody. But when you subdivide it into 10-acre parcels, it's incredibly affordable.
Why is there any reasoning behind exactly 10 acres for each parcel?
It just, 10 acres is our minimum. The reason we like 10 acres is because that is plenty of land to have a very nice big home, and also have plenty for your animals and your livestock to actually be able to run themselves, right? You can have about 6 acres typically allotted for a ranchise, and 4 acres for recreational space. And with that, you're a-okay. I don't like to go below 10. I've committed to never go below 10. Kind of the same reason why Batman doesn't kill. It's one of those things that, like, you don't want to cross a certain line. I'm sure that I could sell these lands for 5 acres each, and probably sell them for the same price that I'm selling them as 10-acre parcels. But to resist that urge, I just say I'm not going below 10 acres. But in some states, we'll go more than 10 acres, especially if the property that we bought is larger. So, for example, in California, we're going to be offering 20-acre parcels. And when we go to Montana, there's going to be parcels that are going to be 40, 50 acres.
Man, that's cool. So I'm just curious too, because again, the homesteading community in particular has really become so popular. That's actually how I discovered the term regenerative agriculture a couple of years ago, was I found myself in homesteading Twitter and they talked about that. And then that inevitably led me to where I'm at now, actually.
Yeah.
Because I've also heard, whenever I was traveling, I was working on a couple ranches, some stories too, where folks would buy land or lease land and they'd start and realize, oh, this is not actually what I want to do, and leave. I guess how do you go about that too? Because I know you've mentioned a couple of things to where it could be the people that buy a parcel that's their second land and they're elsewhere and they're letting the ranch hand do all of that. I guess how are you able to go about that to the folks that are interested, but you don't know what the lifestyle is like until you actually do it. I
Yeah.
guess I'm trying to get at my question, if that's even making any sense.
No, I get
Yeah,
exactly your question. I know exactly what you're talking about. The fact of the matter is, everybody's got a plan. There's a quote from Mike Tyson, right? Everybody's got a plan before they get into a fight before they get punched in the teeth, right? And that's a lot like what it's like to go homesteading. If you really truly have no skills, no abilities, no experience. I mean, I look at most people, and the fact of the matter is, and I'm making fun of myself here too. The fact of the matter is, most people are domesticated, right? We're kind of like domesticated animals. Like we, in the same way that you can't have a dolphin that's hanging out in SeaWorld and then release him out into the ocean because he's going to get bodied by the other dolphins who actually know what they're doing out in the wild. You got a bunch of, dolphins that have been kept in the suburbs that don't know what it's actually like to be out there growing your own food. So you're right. A lot of people really, really struggle. And that's what makes it so scary and so difficult. And that's why it's so nice, the opportunity that we're giving people out here at X. It's not just some people. I recommend basically everybody just use our Ranch Hand League program to get started. And I recommend people to transition over time if they want to work their land, to transition over time by learning from the ranch hands and working side by side with their ranch hands. But in every case, you should just have the ranch hands that we have getting the job done, because our ranch hands are literally built for the job. We don't just use some randos. We don't just use some illegals. We usually recruit U.S. Marines to become our ranch hands. Okay. These are literally gentlemen who have been trained to deal with very, very stressful situations out in the heat that can now come down and still maintain that same camaraderie as we teach them the systems, typically from Polyface Farms, the systems for regenerative agriculture. We had a property owner once who, suffice it to say, before he came out there, time and time again, he would talk about, oh, do I really have to have the ranch hands do stuff for me? Do I, can I just pay less for my ranch eyes and I'll just do the work myself? And I would be like, dude, you don't really understand what it's like out there. Well, first day out there, out on our Texas property, he almost gets a heat stroke. Okay. Meanwhile, this is what our ranch hands are just used to, right? So we encourage people to come in and transition and be humble and learn from our team of ranch hands that are able to solve problems. Now, the cool thing about everything that we're doing is that because we have so many different properties and we have so many different property owners, it allows us to run trial and error experiments. And I believe that even Joel Salatin would agree with me on this. The fact of the matter is, it kind of comes down to 1/3 experience, 1/3 trial and error, and 1/3 attitude when it comes to successful regenerative farming. So we're able to we're able to bring in experienced people that other people just can't afford, right? Like I literally signed a licensing deal that makes it so that all of my property owners get access to Joel Salatin's Farm Like a Lunatic course, which would otherwise be $1,000 course, but all my customers get for free. Every single one of them gets for free. Then I also trained all of my ranch hands on that course, and I have Joel Salatin himself flying out to Little G to literally train my ranch hands and record a video for me. That's a different level, right? Of like covering that 1/3 of experience, right? How many people have that? Then, when it comes to the attitude, again, I just mentioned, hey, we have U.S. Marines as ranch hands, and we have so many applications that we filter people out. I mean, people come in and we put them through a hell week, basically, where they have to go chase the pigs, and it's really, really difficult because I'm trying to make people quit as fast as possible so that I keep the ones that are really worthwhile, right? And they know what's worthwhile because there's plenty of money to be made. But then also because we have so many property owners, right? Every one of them, putting in $100,000 each, that gives us the capital to make mistakes, right? Like I think about just very stupid example, our milk machine, right? We bought literally 6 different milk machines, each of them being like $2,500, like $3,500, until we found the perfect milk machine. Very few other farmers can afford to do that. For other farmers, it's like that's a very big decision in their lives, which one milk machine they're going to go ahead and get. But for me, I'm like, you know what? I'm glad to make that investment spending $20,000 until we find the perfect portable milk machine. Because now that I have that perfect portable milk machine, I can repeat that in every single Axe property on Little G, and then in Florida, and then in California or anywhere else that we're going to be, right? That's really, really exciting. So it's benefiting from all three of those parts that makes life a lot easier. Then, when families come in, they can have their children be out there learning from the ranch hands, be part of the lifestyle, and they can build up the muscles necessary, the muscles for heat tolerance, the muscles for learning how to read the grass. You have to really get good at understanding grass lengths and what's going on with those grass lengths, understanding what's a happy cow, what's an unhappy cow, what's a happy goat, what's an unhappy goat, what's a happy chicken, what's an unhappy chicken, what do you do with them in the rain, what do you do with them in a drought, what do you do with them with the snow, what do you do with them with each one of these scenarios. So it really is a training process, and the reason so many people are these like long-term farmers that are like 3, 4, 5 generations is because, well, they've got the benefit of their parents having done this for them. But I have to reparent people throughout this whole process so that they can actually take it on. Because if you don't, and you've never been taught this, of course it's going to be outrageously difficult.
When was the first family that bought the first parcel? How long ago was that?
We had our first families buy parcels around December. And then we had some more road installation and things like that. That meant that people really got started like closing on the parcels around April of 2024, and the first franchises signed and paid for in May. So this recording is mid-July 2024, and again, people started on about the 1st of May, like that's when they really started. And not only do we have 12 franchises up and running, but we actually have the milk truck getting wrapped up. We've got our first pigs processed, so we've got about 1,200 pounds of Iberian pork that is like already processed, and we're already getting ready to sell everything. So we're excited about that.
Very cool. On the topic of just the production and then the sales, what does that look like? Is this in terms of selling it in the local community, or how are you going about that for, I guess, because you also mentioned that you're expanding to California and Montana. Are you doing similar things that you plan to do in Texas and the Florida sectors for all of that?
Yep. 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 So the way we run things is as a co-op model. For anybody who doesn't know, a co-op is when you have one brand that has produce distributed into it by many different families. Examples include Vital Farms. So Vital Farms, when you buy a Vital Farms egg over at Whole Foods, Vital Farms is a collection of 200 different individual families that all produce eggs and send it over to Egg Central Station in Vital Farms. Well, in the same way, we have a co-op that will locally distribute produce within that area. So, for example, Little G is situated between Dallas and Houston. You can get to Dallas and you can get to Houston both in 2.5 hours each. So, our main focus is to have literal milk trucks like a 1950s milkman, okay, that hand delivers milk to these metropolitan areas. We also deliver meat, we deliver eggs, and on top of that, the idea behind the brand is that it's for high performance Christians. So not only are people getting meat, milk, and eggs, but they also have access to our online course community where they can learn skills in business, skills in relationships, skills in building themselves up as Christians, right? So that same model is actually repeatable not just in Texas, but in Florida and in Tennessee, in California. And the neat thing is that you actually cannot cross state lines with raw milk. So what you would have to do is you would have to have a company that has farms in each individual state if you're going to do that. So we're the only ones who can do that, and that's why we're excited to start producing and distributing raw milk within each one of these states as a national brand that is still with that hyper local flavor.
That actually just made me think about, so whenever you were starting this and the fact that you started it in Texas and Florida and you're expanding elsewhere, and again, this is just something that I've not really heard of buying all this land and then splitting it up and then actually franchising, as you're saying. Were there a lot of um uphill battles to starting something like this?
Are you
Like,
kidding me? Yeah, of
okay,
course.
so I would love to, I guess, hear that process because that it sounded like, or it sounds like just even talking in my head that it would be an absolute mess to do this.
Yeah, it's I'll tell you what. The hard part is not the actual strategies to get this stuff up and running. The hard part is dealing with people's BS skepticism every step of the way through, by far, right? The fact of the matter is that, like, every one of the systems that we use is a system that has been perfected by others, but nobody's just put them all together. So I have mentors that have taught me everything I need to know about the subdivision approval process. I have mentors that have sold over $4 billion of real estate. I have another gentleman who's sold over 900 home sites in 1 year through subdividing land. I've got another gentleman who's subdivided and sold over 50,000 acres of land as individual 1 or 2 acre parcels, right? And then, I have direct connections to people like Salatin, learning from people like Richard Perkins, learning from people like the Shepherdess when it comes to the farming, right? I don't need to reinvent the wheel here. I just listen to Joel. I just listen to Richard, right? I don't have to reinvent that. I also don't have to reinvent things when it comes to food sales, right? I've got people like Tim Forrest helping me out, got people like Amy Hay. I'm able to learn from others who have perfected it when it comes to those types of sales. So that's not the hard part. The hard part is that this entire time, because people struggle with understanding first principles and people struggle with understanding that God wants more from them than the honestly limited lifestyles that they've been living up to this point, it's just showing people that this stuff is real. If I get one more person that goes, "Oh, this is too good to be true," I don't even know what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna go crazy, right? Because again, it's just not, right? It's just not. It's more just the fact that, hey, yes, I'm the first one to put it all together, but it's all right there. So the hardest battle by far has been dealing with people coming in thinking they're so smart as they ask me the same questions as they try to play gotcha. They always try to, think like they try to move the goalposts on, like, but what about this, TJ? But what about this, TJ? But what about this? As if I haven't been working on this for half a decade, and already done it. People always think like they came up with some new thing that's going to scare me or try to make me stop. So it's been a real uphill battle going from, I mean, the hardest was when it was just an idea, even though I knew everything was there, to now that it is an actual reality and people can go out and they can physically see it with their own two eyes and eat it, right? Still, people with their fear and their comfort zone, their need to stay in the comfort zone. That's been the hardest thing by far.
Are there, trying to see how I can best formulate this question, just from the experience so far, are there certain types of, I guess, families that are interested in reaching out for this type of stuff? Or is it just people from all walks of life that are just coming to this?
No, it's not. It's not. So, there's people from all walks of life who want this lifestyle because God actually, I have come to the conclusion by this point, and I don't say this because I run Axe, I'm the CEO, and I'm biased and I'm some marketer. No, no, like legitimately, God has already put it in people's hearts. God made man to take dominion over earth, look out over everything that was green, be able to eat everything that was green, and name the animals, take care of the animals, right? That's from the beginning. The same way that God made spiders and he said you weave webs, and he made birds and he said you fly. He said you man, you are to take dominion as a farmer over earth. That's the simple way to put it. But with that being the case, Axe is not for everybody. The people that would do the best and tend to do the best at X are by far um, entrepreneurial Christian families with one or two children or grandchildren under 5 years old. Those are typically the main families that we get. The reason they're entrepreneurial, and I think the difference between entrepreneurs and other people, is that entrepreneurs understand that you're going to have risk and you're going to have to think of things long term in order to see success. Meanwhile, most wage workers or employees, they don't understand that. They play the game thinking that they're playing business by always trying to cap their quote unquote risk, right? Always worried about, but what about this? But what about that? But what about this? And they don't understand that the biggest risk is not taking full responsibility and just committing. Right. So a lot of people, they want to hide behind their what ifs and their fears and their comfort zone thinking to not commit to things when the fact of the matter is that non-commitment is what 100% guarantees their failure. Meanwhile, entrepreneurs come in and they say, you know what? First off, TJ's just giving me a good deal on land, period. Period. Before we even talk about anything else, it's just a good deal on land. But then you go a little bit deeper into it. It's like, okay, worst case scenario, if it's not going to work the first year, give it the second year, give it the third year, right? And it will work over the course of time. I think it's pretty incredible compared to most people who've actually started their homestead to be able to say, hey, yeah, you can be successful and you can start earning a profit within a year. That anybody who's actually done it, they understand, man, that's actually really powerful. Like, wow. But people come in with no farming experience and they're acting like a year's a long time. They're acting like, oh, I don't know. Like, I don't know. You got to prove it to me, TJ. Like, it's like if I gave you the concept of like, you can have a franchise, you can be successful in 2 years, 3 years, that's already a miracle. That's a miracle considering we're talking about people who have never farmed anything in their lives. So, it's the people who can get over their own BS, get over their own false skepticism, who can understand where that actually is coming from. Because it's not coming from God, I'll tell you that. It's coming from someone else who does not have your best interest at heart. It's the people who are able to get over that and actually, take that leap of faith and say like, okay, this really has been thought out. This really has been planned out. They're the ones who are successful.
So say that there's a listener that hears this that is really interested based off of just this initial conversation, getting into, I guess, the economic side of it all. What would they have to expect for like a 10 parcel land
Yeah. So,
or 10 acre parcel land?
yeah, for the most part, our parcels go for an average of about $250,000. So expect to place about 20% down. Sometimes we can find financing options that are as low as 10% down. So if it was 10% down, expect to put down $25,000. If it was 20% down, then expect to put down about $50,000. And then you have monthly payments, of course, depending on what financing terms you got. Generally, the interest rates are between 7 to about 9% for most loans. That comes out to somewhere around $1,500 a month. So again, $50,000 and then $1,500 a month. That's going to get you some land. You're probably going to need a good credit score, ideally above 700, ideally above 720. That's what you're going to want as a credit score. And then it's your choice how you want to fund your franchise. You can, a lot of families, they just do it cash. They just put the $100,000. They don't think about it ever again. It's really nice when they do that. But there's other options available for you to be able to finance the purchase of a franchise. This could be alternative financing solutions, business financing solutions, LLC financing solutions. There's just different ways to skin the cat on something like that. But on average, it comes out to somewhere around like an extra like 1,000 to like $1,250 for the actual franchise. So total, you can expect to put down about $50,000. That's 20% down, and then expect a monthly payment of about, I'd say between $2,500 to about $3,000 a month to have this. But you're expecting, hey, okay, I'm doing this now, but over the course of a year, cash flow can start coming in. We like to say, hey, don't expect anything for the first 6 months, but then after those first 6 months, expect it to start ramping up with a goal of matching those outward cash flows of $3,000 with your actual franchise income coming in, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, that definitely does. And then I guess my follow-up to that too, because you mentioned that there's 12 franchises that are now working and they started in May, and then this goes back to December. I was wondering if you could just give an example of a family that had gone through this process that's now actually full-fledged doing their own thing now.
Yeah, yeah. So a great example was a gentleman named Steve. So Steve literally lives in Chicago. Like he literally lives in Chicago as we speak. He originally wanted to be part of our Tennessee property, but then when he heard that like I lived in Texas, he was like, you know what? Let me go check out Texas. He ended up getting a parcel over there in Texas, and he was our first person to not just get their land, but to actually purchase his own franchise. Steve has had a ranch hand assigned to him who helps him out. And the way it works is that we actually designed his parcel and looked at like, okay, here's the open areas for your pastures. Here's where an ideal home site might be that's out of the way of everything else, but at the same time allows you to enjoy the beauty of a parcel. And then we talked to him about what he would like to do for his animals. So for Steve, he's getting two A2 Jersey cows and three Wagyu beef cows with another two that we call bullets in the chamber or replenishment cows. This means that once we process his three Wagyu beef cows, it typically takes 24 to 36 months to replenish and, like fully grow another Wagyu. So we know, hey, like once we, take these other three to processing and you have none left, let's just go out and let's just buy two others, to add on to the ranch. And over time, we have a breeding program to keep adding on to it. We were able to install we're able to deliver the animals. We contractually have 60 days, but on average it takes us only 30 days to actually deliver the animals. And we install the fencing first for the actual animals. This includes some outer fencing, and then within the outer fencing, we put electric wire fencing to start moving the cows around. And by this point, we know we basically have it where, how to put it, we know the different websites to go to. We have it already set up so that as soon as someone, purchases with us their franchise, we just go through and it's part of our standard operating procedures to just go making all the purchases and setting up all the deliveries. From there, the animals get delivered. The infrastructure is set up before the animals get there. The animals arrive, we load them in, and then we just take care of them. And we usually send some photo updates of the animals.
Hmm.
Although we found that some of the families, they start seeing the photos and then they get all upset because, we're going to take them to slaughter. But yeah, that's what it's like.
So whenever you mentioned about moving the cows, that actually brought up, I remember seeing a video that you made of using, it was pet food and like a dog bowl as an analogy for rotating cows. I was
Yeah.
hoping that you could share that because it was such a great example.
Yeah. So one of the big false skepticisms, preconceived notions that I had to deal with is I would talk about land and I'd be like, yeah, you can have 10 acres and you can have like, five cows, 10 cows on one of these parcels. And people would be like, how dare you? You can't do that. You can only have one cow for every 2 acres, right? Because that's what they assume, right? And they think that anything else must be like, they can't they think that it literally has to be one cow every 2 acres or one cow calf combination every 2 acres, or you have a bunch of cows packed in a horrible feedlot scenario, right? And it's just like no, no, no. Rotational grazing completely changes that. Now, the specific thing that I mentioned in that video is something called cow days per acre, which is a measurement tool for how much grass you're feeding to the cows, right? So the analogy there is that, okay, I have my dogs and I know that I just feed my dogs 2 bowls of food every single day. And I know if I give them 2 bowls of food, then I know they're happy and I know that I can move on, right? And I can make calculations on how much I'm going to buy when I go out to the grocery store from budgeting things. Well, in the same way, we can look at some cows and we can very literally just put the cows out there and you can experiment. This is what I was talking about with trial and error. You can find out, all right, if I put these cows, let's say I have 5 cows. Okay, let's say I'm talking about Steven's parcel and he's got 5 cows on it. All right. I want you to imagine that we sectioned off about 6 acres on his parcel and we put those, we then took those 6 acres and we turned them into 12 half-acre little sections using electric wire fencing. Okay. We'll put the 5 cows on there and we'll just look at how they eat the grass, right? You want to see the cows eating the grass and then just chewing cud and laying down very, very happy, okay? Well, we're going to look at how long does it take for the cows to get to that point where they're chewing the cud, they've eaten all the grass, they're laying down and they're happy, right? They're not like eating it at the root. Well, maybe on some days in the year, it's actually going to be that maybe you need even less than that. Maybe it's spring and there's a lot of rain and you don't actually even need the half acre. You can get away with a quarter acre, right? You can then sometimes you want to just keep it to that. Other times maybe you need to have even more land available for those cows, right? Then you just expand it outwards. But what you're looking for is how much grass are those cows eating and are they eating the grass to the root? That's the real issue. You don't want the cows to be overgrazing the grass because if you do that, that creates something called desertification, where you killed off the grass at the root and now it's not going to grow back nearly as easily. And because it doesn't grow back nearly as easily, the grass, dies off. You're just left with dirt and soil. The dirt and soil loses its bacteria. The lost bacteria means that it turns literally into a mini desert. So we use these paddocks as our dog bowl and as our measurement tool to keep rotating the cow every single day. Now, the cool thing about that is that grass grows itself back, generally speaking, around every 12 days. So what that means is, hey, if I have 12 different little areas and I'm moving the cows every single day across 12 different areas, then on the 13th day, they're back at paddock number 1. So they're at paddock number 1. They go to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, then right back to number 1. And it's been about 12 days since they've done that, meaning that the grass has gotten to the perfect length before the cows start eating it again. So that's what I mean, or what I meant earlier, where you want some expertise, someone to show you the first time, but then you want to develop the skill for observing the grass, managing the grass, and managing the animals so that they eat the appropriate amount of grass. Sometimes it's a little bit more, sometimes it's a little bit less, and you just want to pay attention to those changes over the course of time.
No, I love that so much. It makes it that concept to where I don't know, I thought it was the best analogy because even though I've been learning agriculture, it was probably my favorite analogy for it because it made me think about watching a dog. However much food you give it, it's gonna devour it.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah, I didn't, yeah, thank you for that. I didn't mention that part. Like, yeah, so like, and what's being referred to is this, that when people think of this idea of like, oh, you can only have like, 1 cow every 2 acres, it's because most farmers, they're literally too lazy. They're literally too lazy. They literally don't have the manpower to move the cows every single day. So what they do is they just leave the cows out all the time on land. And this is why people think that, that you have to have like huge ranches. In fact, when I started talking on Instagram about, hey, you can have 10-acre ranches, one of the stupid comments I would always receive is, 10 acres isn't a ranch. You can't have a 10-acre ranch. You need 100 acres for a ranch. That's a ranchette. Like as if that's the important thing that we have to focus on here, guys. It's like no, like you don't need all of that area because that's only if you're letting the cows run around. And what you brought up about the dogs is that's the equivalent of me saying like, oh well, You have to just give like, you have to give a whole new bag of dog food to a dog every other day because, you're just taking a whole bag, you're dumping the entirety of the bag of dog food out in one giant pile for the dogs, and then getting surprised when the dogs sit there and eat all of the food all at the same time. Like clearly that's what they're going to do, and that's exactly what cows will do. They're going to just go and just eat as much of the grass as humanly possible. And the worst part is they're going to gravitate to the most beautiful parts, the most grass filled parts of the land, and they're going to destroy those parts because they're thinking in their heads, this part has the best grass, this part has the most grass. Let me eat as much of the good grass as possible. Let me avoid as much of the bad grass as possible. So you have people who have these lands that the best grasses die, and you're left with only the ugliest grasses possible because the cows naturally avoided it. And that's what's happening for most farmers.
Hmm. I guess to transition a little bit um, to just the one thing I've also noticed with just agriculture as a whole too, and what I like about this in particular is the fact that you're having ranch hands for folks. Because I've noticed too, a lot of farmers, they're amazing at farming, but they're not so great at the business side of things. And it's already an industry to where it's severely understaffed. There's not a lot of folks moving into this space. It's more so folks are moving out of the space.
Yeah,
Um,
for almost 200 years.
yeah. I mean, that's why I have this brand. That's why I'm doing the podcast is as much education as possible is to bring folks to this side because or else it's going to continue to be more centralized and we're not going to
Hmm.
be able to have any land or really have any sovereignty over our food. I guess how do you go about the business aspect of this too? Because once you're saying you have the co-op and there's just so many moving pieces. I'm just curious in terms of the business side of things, how are you going about that?
Yeah, there's so many parts to speak to about what you just said. Let's start off with let's just start off with the fact that you're right. Most farmers are not good business people. They really aren't. They really, really aren't. They don't want to learn business. They don't care to learn business. They don't understand. They most importantly don't understand the importance of sales. 93% of farmers do not sell their own food to individuals. They sell their food to companies on contracts that are as basic as humanly possible. They just go with what is given to them by these companies, and therefore they commoditize themselves. And that's the major issue, right? To commoditize yourself. That's why people got all upset. When people get mad about, I don't make enough money or income inequality, let me tell you what. The only reason you're mad is because you want to be a commodity. That's why. You're upset and people are butthurt because they are a commodity. If you want to make standout money, you got to stand out yourself in your skills and your business and whatever you're doing. And again, most farmers, they don't want to do that. I one time went to a farm with a very, very, very nice woman. She had 400 organic grass-fed cows, very similar to what we're doing, right? But check this out. I talked to her about what she was doing right now with some of that milk, and she says that she sells it to Dairy Farmers of America. And I asked her, how much do they pay you for the milk? For the 20,000 pounds of milk that she has to deliver every single week. She said she gets paid $1.25 per hundredweight of milk. And I was like, what? That does sorry. Excuse me. I messed up there. She said she was paid $11.25 per hundred weight of milk. In other words, $1.25 per gallon of milk. Why is that so crazy to me? Well, she sells it for $1.25 per gallon. I'm selling my milk for $25 per gallon. I mean, how much is the difference there? Just from understanding marketing and business and things like that, how much is that difference? Let's see.
It's a lot.
25 divided by $1.20. That's a 20x difference. That's crazy. That's just insane to me. And it's because she's on a contract and she cannot learn, and she's not going to do Facebook ads or Instagram ads. She's not going to go out to the market. She's not going to do it direct to consumer. It's the marketing and distribution side of things that makes the big difference. When people go out and they buy that milk, I'm sure that that woman's milk, if I go to the grocery store, I might not be able to recognize which milk is going to literally be hers, because of course they're going to just take hers and dump it with everything else. But I'm pretty sure that the type of milk that she has, it's going to go for about $12.50 at the grocery store for total. And again, she's only making $1.25 out of that. So what does that tell you? That tells you that 90% of what's going into that gallon of milk that's going to be sold at retail is going to be all marketing and distribution. All of it. Okay? 90%. So that's my skill. I'm very, very good at marketing. I'm very, very good at understanding what it's going to take to get that distribution out there. And to get those skills, I've honed them over time in many different industries, to the point that now I'm just applying it in farming. But before there was Axe, I'd created 20 different businesses that had done over $1 million, right? I did it with a marketing agency. In that marketing agency, we helped out roofers. So I helped out about 17 different roofers become millionaires themselves. Then I did it with my own father's medical practice. When he went up to me, he said, "Hey, I'm struggling. I'm about to go underwater." And I said, "Hey, Dad, let me take over. Let me do all of this for you. Let me do this." And I turned his business around from losing money to him and each one of his individual partners, each making $1.25 million a year salary. Okay. All of that using techniques that I now apply to everything that we're doing at Wanted Raw Foods. So it's understanding that side of business, understanding what goes into a good what goes into good marketing, what goes into a solid offer, what goes into branding, what even is a brand, what goes into good sales, what makes a good sale, what is it that Louis Vuitton does to sell purses for $5,000? There's a special technique that Louis Vuitton does that you can actually apply to milk, which creates that 20x difference, right? It's understanding scaling on it on a business. Like, I know going into it, when I create a business, when I get about 11 to 12 employees in the business and reach over $1 million, I know that it's actually time to cut away from that business and reduce that team down to 5 or 6 people. Whoa, most people don't know that. Most people would think that if you had a business that has $1 million and 11 to 12 employees, you're balling. I know that's a red flag. Maybe cut away and reduce the teams. That's some counterintuitive stuff. So, part of it is that I've spent literally hundreds of thousands of dollars to have mentors all along the way. I've spent more than my college education just learning skill after skill after skill. And now that I've done all of that work, I'm just applying it to running franchises as a business using those same exact principles, by the way. Um, but it could have been, I mean, I have ideas for our own fashion line with our sheeps, right? Like a whole fashion lineage on what would go into that. And I know the exact offer creation for what would go into that. And I just apply those same skills again and again and again as a repeatable process.
No, I love that. And this is again why I love everything you're doing, because going back to just the comment of folks don't understand what they're getting into once they buy a piece of land, because you are an electrician, a plumber, a repairman, a carpenter, a veterinarian, uh, and then you're actually having to plant all the food, and you have the weather to go up against or with, and then you're expected to have to understand the business and marketing and sales and all that. There's just so much that
Yep.
goes into all of this. So I guess with that being said too, on the marketing side, with your expertise and skills, is there any advice you could give to farmers and ranchers that might be listening to this of I guess one thing they could look into, or one skill or something they could really implement to potentially help their marketing and sales?
Yes, yes, I've got a good thing. Well, two big things, two big things. Number one, people need to invest in themselves. They really do. They really do. I was just saying just now, hey, look, most farmers, they just don't, they refuse, they don't understand business and they refuse to learn business, right? And this is just most people. Most people refuse to learn business. How many people have actually picked up a freaking book on how to get business better at business? How many people have gotten over their false skepticism? This is, one through line. One of the things I've been saying, I've been saying like false skepticism, it's a big issue. Let me tell you exactly what false skepticism sounds like. False skepticism is that voice that when you hear an offer says, this is too good to be true, must be get rich quick, and must be a scam. You know what? There's plenty of people who talk about get rich quick schemes as an issue, but there's not enough people talking about the staying broke forever program, which is what most people are in. Okay. I have no problem pulling the trigger. I mean, heck, I pulled the trigger this morning on a $55,000 program just to learn a certain skill in selling. And before that, literally the day before that, I spent another $25,000 hiring a consultant who has taken a certain milk brand to over $150 million exit. But I look at that and I'm like, okay, whatever. So I spent that 55K and I spent the other 25K. What is that? That's $80,000. But can I make more than that $80,000 because of that? Yeah. In fact, from those two guys alone, I'll probably be able to make, another $5, $10 million with my brand. Spending $80,000 to make $10 million is a freaking great exchange. So when I see my franchises, which is my farm, right? I see it as an investment opportunity and I invest in the knowledge that helps me take that investment to the next level. Then the specific skill within that I challenge other farmers, if they have any hope to compete with Wanted and the brand that we're about to set up, the only way you could do it is you have to learn offer creation. You have to understand the mindset behind offer creation. You have to understand what it genuinely means. Because you know what? The days of I'm just selling milk, that's gone. There's whole different levels that the brand has to get to. And as long as you're sitting there and, just focus on the commodity of your product, you're going to be paid commodity prices. If all you do is I just have milk, right? That's an issue. Mind you, like I was working with one farmer and she literally has a raw milk program. She's selling her stuff for $50, so you can get onto her herd share, and her herd share is $50 a month, and you'll get a gallon of milk every single week for that month. For my program, with literally the same milk from the same cows, I'm going to be selling it for $200 a month for that same program, same amount of milk from the same cows. What did I do to make that difference? Well, I did something with my offer that makes it a no-brainer for my specific target people that are interested in this, people that I call high performance Christians. And if you're a high performance Christian and you're listening to this, there's some of you that think to themselves, oh, well, TJ's charging 4 times as much for the same milk. He just said it. He admitted it. 4 times as much for the same milk from the same literal lineage of cow. Must be a scam. Then there's others who go, wait a minute. What is he doing that will make it that 4 times? Why are other people willing to do that? And for those who find out exactly what we're doing, it becomes a complete and total no-brainer because I offer something different. I offer a result and a transformation into that result that others simply cannot. That makes my milk more than just milk.
Hmm. I have one last question, and it's going to be transitioning a little bit, but wanted to, I guess, get some understanding behind. So it's 500 acres and it's split into 10-acre parcels. Is there is there like an HOA or anything of along those natures? Since you're, I guess it's the upper I'm trying to figure out how I can best formulate this question either. Um, yeah, because there's just 40 different parcels. Is there any type of governance or anything going on that's like an HOA?
So there is officially no HOA. We do have deed restrictions that everybody signs, and these deed restrictions are a community-wide agreement for how we're going to steward the land. Governance is not based off of just acts alone. Governance is with that deed restriction agreement that you have with every one of your neighbors. So your neighbors can look at those deed restrictions and be able to say, "Hey, we need to hold you accountable for the fact that like you're not adhering to these deed restrictions and you're harming my land for having done that. So please stop." If you look at our deed restrictions, they are very common sense and they're all based on natural law in that there is literally a form of harm or of aggressive harm or theft if you transgress upon any one of these deed restrictions. For example, one of our deed restrictions is to not use Monsanto chemicals such as glyphosates on your farm. Well, if you use those glyphosates, that can seep into the ground and that goes into my neighbor's yards. That also goes into the river water and the pond water that we have. And lastly, it steals away from the brand because our brand is that it's organic, grass-fed, chemical-free, right? So any one of our neighbors can go to you and it's literally, hey, we'll confront you directly for having done this issue. Okay. And then if need be, we'll get more of the neighbors to come to you directly and say this needs to stop immediately. And then if it needs be, then we can have legal recourse on that. But we don't nickel and dime people. We don't have any HOA fees. We don't do any of that petty stuff. There's nothing like, is whether your house is 50% stucco or 65% stucco, that's not something that is a transgression of natural law that actively causes aggressive harm or theft, right? That's not one of those things. Setting up a 5G cell tower is, however,
Mhm.
right? We ask people to live off grid and to not have electric usage of electric wires going onto the parcel. Why do we do that? Well, it's because let's say that you have a parcel that's over on the corner of the property and you want to be that one a-hole who wants to get the electricity out there. Well, now you're going to have to send government workers to cross past everybody else's parcel to get to your land over in the corner of the property. So everybody agrees we're doing completely off grid. That means you get your own solar, you get your own stuff for that. The other side of it is that instead of punishing people and extracting from people the way that an HOA does, another aspect of it is that we're able to come to agreement onto the treatment of animals based off of our agreements that we have with individual families through Wanted Raw Foods. So in other words, I know that I don't have to worry about you mistreating your animals on your land when you're working with Wanted because you're making so much money that why would you? You know, rather than an HOA that I'm already paying money for towards, and now they're going to just make me pay more money. Now it's, hey, I'm paying you money. I'm paying you money to adhere to these things. So it's in your best interest to just keep on adhering to these things because as long as you do it, then it makes our brand be as good as possible. And because it makes our brand be as good as possible, you're going to make more money. So why don't you just stick along with it?
I love
So,
that.
yeah.
Well, thank you. I guess to end this discussion, you could feel free to plug anything you'd like, or if there's anything else that you'd like to add that we didn't talk about.
Thank you. I would say for anybody who's interested in joining ACTS Decentralized Real Estate, please do the research, watch the entirety of the FAQs before making your decision. Our FAQ section is a 135 video section on our website where I, as the CEO, literally sat down on camera addressing 135 of the most frequently asked questions that we received. It's done in a way that I've never seen any other CEO of any other company ever do. I've never seen like Elon Musk sit down and explain every single question you could have about a Tesla, or Zuckerberg explain every single question you could have about Facebook. I did that so that there's no excuses when it comes to information. There's no ability to be like, oh, I'm not sure. I don't know. I don't understand. I don't get it. How does this work? It doesn't make any. No, no, no. It's all in there. And we did it partially as a filter. If you manage to, first off, okay, if you're sitting there questioning us and skeptical about us and you haven't gone to the FAQs, do you really want do you really want to move off grid so badly? Because it's like all we're asking you is to sit in an air conditioned room for 2 hours and just watch this video series where you're going to learn a lot. Like we teach people a lot of stuff in there. Okay. And then the other part about it is like, is a person actually emotionally mature enough to make a decision on their own? A lot of people reach out to me not having watched the FAQs or having finished the FAQs and still not being able to make a decision because they want me to sell them on this lifestyle. The reason we don't have salespeople and the reason I don't sell people on this lifestyle is because I don't want to give you the excuse that because I speak in a persuasive tone that you made a decision and that I like somehow like brainwashed you into like moving off grid and farming. I don't want you to have that excuse. I want you to be fully committed so that you can say, I made this decision on my own with absolutely nobody pressuring me or trying to, make me do this. So that when you do commit, you are fully 100% committed and there is absolutely no looking back. So that's why we've done things the way we've done them. So go to our Instagram page, go to ACTS Real on Instagram, ACTS Dereal. Check out our videos, then go to our website, build your own ranch, get an estimate, then go through our frequently asked questions section. Sit there, take it very, very seriously. If your spouse doesn't understand, show it to your spouse. Say, take this very, very seriously, watch this whole thing, and make a decision on your own. If you can do that, if you can commit, then I guarantee that you can be successful with our systems so long as you put in the work. But if you're going to be lazy and if you're going to be questioning the whole way through, then I'd just rather never deal with you.
Well, thank you so much, TJ. I really appreciate this conversation.
You're welcome, man. You're welcome. I hope this was fun.
It definitely was.
Visit www.theregenaissance.co to learn more.